Hello, it's John Heaton, and I've had a request to review the album Yellow Submarine from the Beatles, so I'm going to do that now. I've seen a few people do their Beatles album rankings in the last few weeks, and obviously because in many ways this is not a proper album, it kind of brings up the rear at number 13, and in many ways it isn't a proper album, and I don't judge it on the same level as I judge the other albums. It's a bit like a compilation, I suppose. So, you know, judge it compared to other albums like Oldies but Goldies or Hey Jude or something like that. But I suppose the main reservation people have is there's only half Beatles and the other half is George Martin. So that, in a way, makes it not a true Beatles album. But it's got its merits, and I'm going to talk about them now. Okay, so the songs on side one are all featured in the movie, and although we've already had Yellow Submarine on the Revolver album, it obviously has, if there's an album called Yellow Submarine, it has to be the lead-off track, without question. By the way, this animation for the film is just timeless, and it's nice to have this on a full-size 12-inch LP, because the alternative that the Beatles were thinking about in the fall of '68 was to put out the 4 new tracks as an EP. But I think they made the right decision to collect those tracks together with a couple of other tracks and the George Martin stuff and put it on an album. But it's nice to have it, and it's on the Faithful Apple label. It did come out very quickly after the White Album, I think within about 5 or 6 weeks of the White Album, so I'm not sure how well it sold, but on the back, Derek Taylor, the Beatles press officer, was asked to write some sleeve notes, and he rather amusingly said he couldn't be bothered, and so he just posted this article from the London Observer from Tony Palmer, which is just reviewing the White Album. Absolutely nothing to do with Yellow Submarine at all, but he wanted to promote the White Album because it was still very fresh. He wanted people to go out and buy that, and it's a very good review. I don't think this was on the back of the US pressing, so you guys tell me if that was the case or not. I don't think it was, but anyway, this review, if you haven't read it, is very illuminating and one of the best Beatles album reviews I've read. For example, the voice, particularly that of Lennon, is just another instrument, wailing, screeching, mocking, weeping. And then later on he says, McCartney's drifting melancholy overhangs the entire proceedings, like a purple veil of shadowy optimism, glistening, inaccessible, loving. And he goes on to say it's the Beatles now prove that they're the best thing since Schubert with the White Album. Anyway, back to this album. So after Yellow Submarine we have the first of the 4 new tracks, and then I'll go through those in a minute, and then the side one ends with All You Need Is Love, which was in the film but obviously had already been released as a single in '67. So Only a Northern Song from George is the first new song. And this has been recorded, so when this album came out in January '69, it may have appeared like a new song, but it actually dated back to the Pepper sessions. It was recorded in the Sgt. Pepper sessions, and apparently George Martin went up to George and said, can you do a bit better than this, George? Because this is going to be a classic album. We want your track to go down in, you know, on a par with the rest of them, kind of thing. Can you do a bit better? It's a bit of a cheeky thing to say to George Harrison, but anyway, George did go away and came back with Within You Without You, which obviously ended up on Pepper, and perhaps as a track is more meaningful lyrically, it's very philosophical in its kind of epic instrumentation as well, but that doesn't take anything away from Only a Northern Song. It's a pure piece of psychedelia, 67 Beatles, with weird instrumentation and weird echoey vocals from George and dark, mysterious words. If you think the harmony is a little dark and out of key, you're correct. There's nobody there, that kind of thing. I think this track would have been very interesting on Pepper. It would have made it a completely different album. Can you imagine side 2 opening with that? But anyway, it appears on here, and it's a great asset to this album. And maybe slightly forgotten over the years, but I think the fans love it. All Together Now from Paul is a kind of jaunty, catchy number, which was featured in the film as well. And I happen to love it. Opinion is divided. This song was sung by football crowds up and down the land, for better, for worse. And Paul has just recently started performing it in concert again, to great effect. I saw him in London last summer when he did this song. It's very simple, but it's very effective. And then next track is the best track on the album and one of my favourite Beatles tracks, period. It's John's Hey Bulldog. Just a great piano riff at the beginning, and then the way the bass comes in from Paul, and then the guitar and John's vocals and lyrics, Paul's harmony vocals, Ringo's drumming. I just love the whole mood of the song. Even John spoke favourably of it in his Playboy interview in 1980, saying it doesn't mean anything, but it's a nice sounding song. So I think the Beatles as a band, I think authors like Clinton Halen have even remarked on this track being one of the highlights of the Beatles' career from a musicianship point of view, because it does display all of the Beatles on top of their game just before they went to India. So the breakup hadn't started happening, and although Brian was already dead by this stage, it's got a kind of White Album feel to it as well. It's you can tell it's from the same year, I think, and but it's recorded around the time of Lady Madonna single, so classic. Then we have the second George track, It's All Too Much, which for years I didn't particularly care for. I thought it was a bit long and repetitive, but it's grown on me over the years, and again it's a nice slice of psychedelia. And you know, in the film there's actually an extra verse, which is not on the album, which is interesting. And this song is definitely grown in stature with fans and even with critics over the years. And the George Fest recently had an interesting version of this song from, I can't remember who did it, but so that's the last of the new songs. And then All You Need Is Love closes side 1, and side 2 is George Martin's orchestration. And taken in isolation, maybe, you know, one doesn't play this album very often at all. Can't remember playing it in the last 20 years, to be honest, but in the context of the film, George Martin's orchestration is very effective and suits the mood of the various stages of the film. Pepperland is a glorious melody at the beginning of the film, probably the best track of all of them here. And then Sea of Time, Sea of Holes, Sea of Monsters, you know, it's nice movie pieces. And then Yellow Submarine in Pepperland, when they play the Yellow Submarine melody on the brass band at the end, very effective. So the album itself, nice to have, don't play it a lot, but wouldn't be without it. But alongside the film, didn't just come the album. At the time there were a lot of memorabilia. There's a lot of memorabilia released, like Corgi, Yellow Submarines and stuff. And I don't have any original 60s memorabilia. That would be very rare. But we do have a few goodies. I mean, first of all, we got the DVD, the original version, which came out, I guess, in the 90s at some time. And then the remastered version here, which came out a couple of years ago, 3 years ago maybe, which has some goodies came with it, such as these. I don't know if you can see them on the thing. These transparent things of the 4 Beatles, and then you've got a nice booklet and some stickers, which of course I haven't used. I want to keep the whole thing in mint condition. So that's that. And then we've got these small toys which came in these boxes, which you have to like buy, and you don't know which one you're getting, and you could be getting the 4 normal Beatles here, or the 4 Beatles in Sgt. Pepper costume, or some of the rarer ones like Captain Fred is 1 in 20, and Jeremy is 1 in 20. So we picked up Ringo, John, and the Submarine, and Paul. So we're missing George of the main Beatles. And then again, these are not 60s, but I wish they were. But these are from the late 90s, came out, which I've kept in their packaging. It's very nice, very nicely done. I'm not sure if it came out from Apple, or I think it was, yeah, they actually gave permission to McFarlane Toys to do these, but it was an authorised product. And here you have Ringo with the blue meanie, and you have George with the yellow submarine, and you have Paul with the love glove puppet, and then last but not least you have John with Jeremy. And these are nice to have, and I'm sure they've appreciated in value since I bought them, but they're not for sale, and I'm just happy to have them. I did have another version of Ringo which I took out of the packaging, and of course you know what happens to toys when you take it out of the packaging. They just get ruined when you've got kids around the house, and Ringo and the blue meanie have both disappeared completely. I don't know what's happened to them. So I'm glad to have those in the packaging. Anyway, this album, I'm not going to rank it, I'm not going to put a mark out of 10 on it. All I'll say is it's definitely worth checking out for those 4 tracks, although you can get them elsewhere on like Past Masters and stuff probably. I think it's nice to have them in the context of this album because they all appeared in the movie. Thank you for watching. See you next time.